In the stillness of the church, just heartbeat moments before the vows, the air tightened so thick with tension, it felt like the walls themselves were holding their breath. The bride, Grace Mitchell, stood frozen mid-step, her bouquet trembling slightly in her hands, as a man with a weathered face, a streak of silver in his beard, and a Hell's Angels patch across his cut, moved toward her with quiet urgency. His eyes burned with something fierce, protective, determined. No one else heard what he said, but his words hit Grace like thunder. He told her she was in danger. He told her to act like he was her father. And in that single, heart-stopping instant, Grace Mitchell realized that everything she thought she knew about her life was about to be ripped apart. If you believe in kindness, second chances, and standing up for those who can't protect themselves, make sure to like, comment, share, and subscribe, and tell us in the comments where you're watching from. Grace had stepped into this church believing she was walking into a life of safety and love. Her groom, Ryan Cole, was charming, successful, the kind of man everyone admired. But behind his calm smile and polished words, Grace had sensed something darker, moments that whispered danger when no one else was around. For months leading up to the wedding, she'd ignored the small red flags. The way Ryan's tone changed when she disagreed. The way his grip tightened just a little too hard. The way he always needed control. She told herself it was stress, that love takes patience, that marriage would smooth things over. But standing there now, that leather-clad stranger's voice still echoing in her chest, she realized she'd been walking straight toward a cliff with her eyes closed. The man beside her introduced himself as Jack Ransom. He wasn't just some biker who'd wandered in from the road. He carried himself like a man who'd seen too much of the world and learned how to survive it. There was power in his presence, but also steadiness. Grace didn't know why, but when she looked into his eyes, she felt something she hadn't felt in a long time: relief. Jack had spent 40 years living life in the fast lane, roaring engines, open highways, and the kind of danger most people only read about. But he had never stepped into a stranger's life before until he recognized the man waiting at the altar. Ryan Cole wasn't who he claimed to be. Jack had crossed paths with him decades earlier, back when Ryan went by another name in another state. A conman, a manipulator, a man who'd left a trail of broken lives behind him before vanishing into thin air. Jack thought he'd never see that face again, but fate has a way of looping back around. The moment he saw him, Jack knew Grace wasn't safe. Not tonight, not ever. Grace's pulse pounded in her ears. She didn't know whether to scream, to run, or to collapse. But Jack's hand was firm and steady on her back, guiding her like he belonged there. The guests watching them saw nothing unusual, assuming he was a late relative offering the bride a few words of comfort. Only Grace knew the truth, that this stranger had stepped between her and something horrifying. The walk up the aisle felt like a nightmare playing in slow motion. Every step made her chest tighter. But with Jack beside her, she felt grounded in a way she couldn't explain. At the altar, Jack moved suddenly, positioning himself between Grace and Ryan. The groom's expression twisted, a flicker of rage flashing through the mask he'd spent years perfecting. Jack met his stare with eyes like cold steel. In one smooth motion, Jack pulled a folded document from his jacket pocket, pages thick with photos, records, and a lifetime's worth of lies. A full background report he'd compiled that very morning after spotting Ryan outside the church. Piece by piece, the truth spilled out. Aliases, scams, emotional manipulation, shattered women, ruined families, enough evidence to leave no doubt who Ryan Cole really was. Grace's world tilted. All the doubts she'd buried came surging back at once. Ryan tried to deny it, but cracks in his voice betrayed him. When he lunged forward, eyes burning with fury, Jack reacted instantly, stepping in front of Grace, his arm raised like a wall of stone. Gasps rippled through the pews. Two of Jack's club brothers, who had been quietly posted at the back, moved up fast. The ceremony was over. Security came running. Guests scattered, and through the chaos, Jack stayed at Grace's side, calm and unmoving, shielding her like it was the most natural thing in the world. Ryan was dragged out, yelling threats that echoed off the church walls like shattering glass. And in that noise, Grace felt something else break, the illusion she'd mistaken for love. Later that night, she sat in the empty reception hall, still wearing her wedding dress, staring at the life she almost stepped into. Jack sat across from her without saying much, just giving her space to breathe. When he finally spoke, his words were simple but life-changing. He told her this wasn't her fault, that trusting the wrong man didn't make her weak, that she had been strong long before he ever showed up. Grace wept quiet, exhausted tears soaking the lace of her gown. Jack didn't try to stop her. He just stayed, a silent guardian in a storm he'd already learned to weather. He drove her home himself that night, making sure she wasn't alone until family arrived. In the weeks that followed, Jack and his club checked in on her often. No strings, no expectations, just silent, steady protection while Grace found her footing again. And little by little, she rebuilt. She learned to trust her instincts, to take back her power, to fill the empty cracks with courage instead of fear. Jack never asked for thanks. He just kept watch, like an unspoken promise that not all angels wear wings, because sometimes they ride. If this story moved you, don't forget to like, comment, share, and subscribe, and tell us below what part of this story hit you hardest. You never know. Your words might help someone else find their way back to themselves.